In yesterday's lesson, you learned about simple interest, and in today's lesson, we're going to have more practice with simple interest. And it's important to remember that simple interest is interest that is applied to the initial amount only. And the formula that we use for simple interest, it's the same formula every time, I equals PRT, where I is the amount of interest earned or paid, P is the principal amount borrowed, R is your rate as a percent, but remember you're going to convert it into a decimal when you use this formula, and then T is always your time in years. And so in our first example, we're told that Victoria opens a savings account with an initial deposit of $300, okay, with a deposit of $300. So that right there is your principal amount. She'll earn 1 6/10% interest each year. There is your interest rate, R. How much interest will she earn over 5 years? That's your time in years, assuming that she doesn't add or take out any money. So let's set up our equation. I equals PRT. Okay, well, we've already identified the principal, the rate, and the time, so let's go ahead and substitute those values in. Okay, the principal amount was $300. The interest rate was 1 6/10%. Remember, we're going to move that decimal point once, twice to the left, which is going to turn that into 16 thousandths. And then the time is going to be in 5 years. And this is asking how much interest will she earn. So I is the variable that we are looking for. So all we need to do in order to get the value of I, the interest, is multiply these three numbers together. And so when you go ahead and punch this into your calculator, 300 times 16 thousandths times 5, that's going to give you a value of 24. And so we can say that Victoria will earn $24 in interest over 5 years. Okay, and then there's a follow-up question that asks, how much will Victoria have in her account at the end of 5 years? Well, it's important to remember that interest is the amount that you earn in addition to the principal that you started with. So she started with $300, and then it said that she didn't add or take out any money, but she's earned an extra $24 in interest, so we're going to add 24 to that, and that's going to give us 324. So Victoria will have $324 after 5 years. Just take the principal and add the interest, and that's how you can figure out the total in the account at the end of the 5 years. Our next example tells us that Victoria has another account at the bank that pays 2.5% simple interest. How much interest will she earn in 8 years on an initial deposit of $250? Okay, and so we've got our equation already, I equals PRT. Okay, the initial deposit of $250 is your principal, so let's go ahead and substitute that in for P. Your interest rate is 2.5%. Now it's important to remember that 2.5% is the same as 2 5/10%, and then we're going to move that decimal place twice to the left, once, twice, which is going to turn that into 25 thousandths. Okay, and then our time in years is 8 years. And so again, we're calculating I, the amount of interest. How much interest will she earn? So we just have to multiply 250 by 25 thousandths and then multiply that by 8. And when you punch that into your calculator, you should get an answer of 50. So Victoria will earn $50 in interest over 8 years. The follow-up asks, would the interest for the second year be the same if it were calculated on the total after the first year? Why or why not? Okay, and so we can think about that if we set up the problem. I equals PRT. Okay, so if we're thinking about just the first year, she started with this account with $250 at an interest rate of 2.5%, which we said was 25 thousandths, and then the time T is just going to be 1 year. Okay, and so all we have to do again is calculate the value of I. So when we go ahead and use our calculator, we're going to do 250 times 25 thousandths times 1, which is just going to give us a value of 6 25 hundredths, or $6.25. Now this is asking, would the interest for the second year be the same if it were calculated on the total after the first year? Well, remember, to get the total here, you're going to take the $250 and add the interest, which was $6.25, which is $256.25. Now they're saying for the second year, okay, I equals PRT, is the interest going to be the same if it was calculated on the total after the first year? So our principal no longer is $250, it's going to be $256.25. The interest rate is still the same, 2.5%, and it's just for an additional year for the second year here. All right, and so I can already tell these values are going to be different because the principal amount isn't the same. If your principal amount changes, well then that means the interest that you earn is going to change as well. So if we go ahead and we do the multiplication, 256.25 multiplied by 25 thousandths, okay, that gets us 6,40625. But remember, because this is supposed to be money, we've got to go to the nearest hundredth. So that looks like 40 hundredths, but the 6 there is going to round us up to about $6.41 in interest for the second year. So we can see here that the $2 amounts, the two interest amounts, are going to be different. The next example tells us that Maya's older sister got a loan to buy a used car for $3,400. They want to know what is the interest rate on the loan. So we can set up our equation, I equals PRT, and it says what is the interest rate on the loan. So we're going to be looking for the value of R in this example, okay? And to get all of our information, all right, we already know some of it right here, all right? She got a loan for $3,400. That's going to be the principal, so we can put that here in P, 3,400. And we know we're looking for R, the interest rate. Okay, and then we need to look at the advertisement here to get the rest of our information. And it says, borrow $3,400 for this car today and pay only $8.50 interest every month. You're going to pay $8.50 every month in interest. All right, but it's important to remember that our time T here is always going to be in years. And so what we're going to have to do is figure out how much interest we're going to pay in a year. So if it's $8.50 every month, and we know there are 12 months in a year, just multiply 850 by 12, you're going to get a value of 102. Okay, so that means in 1 year you're going to pay $102 in interest. Okay, and again, our time, that's the amount of interest that you would pay in 1 year. So all we have to do is figure out what the value of R is. Okay, so if we think about this, all right, on the right hand side we have 3,400 times 1, which is just 3,400. So 102 equals 3,400 R. And so to get R by itself, we should divide both sides of the equation by 3,400. So let's go ahead and do that. On the right side, 3,400R divided by 3,400 is just going to be the value of R. And then when you punch in 102 divided by 3,400, that's going to give you a value of 3 hundredths. 3 hundredths. Okay, but remember, this is your interest rate, and we're going to express that as a percentage. So to change 3 hundredths to a percentage, move that decimal twice to the right, and that's going to give us a 3%. And so we can say that the interest rate on the loan is 3%. The next example tells us that another company will lend Maya's older sister $4,000. Every month she will pay $11.88 in interest. What is the interest rate rounded to the nearest tenth of a percent for 1 year? So this is very similar to the example that we just did. So we're going to have I equals PRT. Okay, she's going to lend $4,000, so that's her principal amount. And what is the interest rate? We're looking for R. And then the time is a year again, so times 1. Okay, and again, they tell you that she's going to pay $11.88 in interest every month, so we're going to have to do a little multiplication here. So if we do 1188 times 12, again, because there's 12 months in a year, that's going to give us $142.56. Okay, so this time our value of I, 142.56, equals 4,000 times R times 1. Okay, 4,000 times 1 is just 4,000, so we have 4,000 R on the right, 142.56 on the left. And to get R this time, we're going to divide by 4,000 on each side. So on the right, that's going to give us R, 4,000 R divided by 4,000. And if we do 142.56 divided by 4,000, we punch that into our calculator, we get 0.03564. Okay, well, our question says to round this to the nearest tenth of a percent. So the first thing we're going to do is convert this into a percentage. So move the decimal twice to the right, once, twice. That's 3 564 thousandths percent. And now we'll go to the nearest tenth of a percent. So it looks like 5/10ths, but the hundredths place is enough to round us up. And so we'll say that this is about 3 6/10ths percent. All right, and so let's write that out. The interest rate is about, because we rounded, 3 6/10ths percent. The next problem tells us that Jake opened up a savings account that earns 1.5% interest. Jake estimates that he will earn $240 in interest after 10 years. How much did Jake deposit when he opened the account? How much did he deposit? Well, that's the principal that we're going to be looking for this time. So I equals PRT. Okay, and P, the principal, is what we're looking for. There's your interest rate, 1.5%. Move the decimal twice to the left, which is going to be 15 thousandths. And our time this time is going to be in 10 years. Okay, and for the amount of interest, he's assuming that he's going to earn $240 in interest. Okay, so we've got to get the value of P, the principal. So we'll start by multiplying 15 thousandths by 10. Okay, so we're going to have P times, when you multiply those together, that's going to give you 15 hundredths. And we still have 240 on the left. So to get the value of P, we need to divide each side by that 15 hundredths. Okay, and so when we do that, on the right, P times 15 hundredths divided by 15 hundredths is P. 240 divided by 15 hundredths is 1,600. So this means that Jake deposited $1,600 when he opened the account. Our last problem tells us that Caitlin's brother borrowed money for school. The loan charges 6% simple interest, and he ended up paying $720 in interest after 6 years. How much did Caitlin's brother borrow for school? So just like last time, we're going to be looking for P, the principal. So I'll rewrite P. All right, the interest rate is 6%. We're going to move the decimal back twice, which is going to be 6 hundredths. And it says right here that he paid $720 in interest over 6 years. So that's going to be our amount of time. All right, 6 years. And we need to figure out, again, what the value of P is. So we're going to start by multiplying 6 hundredths by 6, which is going to give us 36 hundredths when you punch that into your calculator. And we still have 720 on the left. And so to get the value of P, just divide each side by 36 hundredths. Okay, so on the right, that's going to leave us with P, the principal. 720 divided by 36 hundredths is going to be 2,000. And so we know that Caitlin's brother borrowed $2,000 for school.